Good afternoon, everybody. It's welcome. It's a wonderful Wednesday once again with Don Anderson and Sunny Danforth. Sunny, what say you?
It's a beautiful day in Northeast Oregon, and it's
That,
wonderful to see you, Don.
yeah, that as you. Is it blue skies out there? We got a little cloud cover over here on the west side.
I see blue skies and I see some clouds. We kind of have it all, and it's been windy,
Mhm.
but it's still a beautiful day. It's not snowing and it's not raining.
Hey, windy day, we're upright. It's a beautiful day. So,
Yes,
and we're still winning.
boy,
Which
we're winning bigly, Don. Winning bigly. I'm not tired of
winning,
winning.
winning bigly is the statement of the day. So, sports fans, I thought I would start with my latest rant. I just sent you all on the chat there a link to it. And I was going to give it kind of high level because I think it's a great way to start. And this one was about global interdependence and why the global elites want interdependence. And I just was noodling this around the other day and came to the conclusion that the reason why they hate Trump's tariffs and they're so much against it is because they want the United States to have no manufacturing base. They want the United States to have a hollowed out middle class and not be able to produce our own stuff and be reliant on other countries to produce it for us. Because if that's the case, then we forced to be interdependent. And if we're interdependent, then that means they can justify how do we make decisions? We make them from one central place of authority or control, and that justifies one world government. So this is precisely what they want, and it seems to all hang together and make sense. You look at that, what that's resulted in Europe. Europe, a bunch of states that came together, European Union, and it's been nothing but a disaster for the last 20 years, ever since they've done it. If you take a look at GNP, for example, over the last 20 years, I said the value of their dollar, the value of the American dollar, the Canadian dollar, and the euro were about the same 20 years ago. Now, the Canadian dollar and the euro are worth about 60% of the American dollar. And we haven't had a stellar 20 years, but wow, they're only half of what the American productivity has been. And we all know the reason for this is because of all the climate change nonsense and the out of control immigration, among other things. And so they want this interdependence. They want to rule the world from Brussels. And the greatest thing that's happened to us in the last like 4 years, we've got a president who's finally said, no, we're not doing that. And it's just an awesome place to be. So there's my initial rant. Read, enjoy, and let me know what your thoughts are.
I'll tell you that I'm so glad that you wrote this and we're talking about it because if we hadn't had COVID, this is one of the beautiful, not beautiful, one of the
Blessings.
unexpected consequences of having COVID was we learned how much we are interdependent in this country with the loss of the supply chain issues and
Yes.
things like that, right? And so, and it is so good with everything that Trump is doing, bringing the manufacturing back here. And it's wonderful for America. And it's what's needed for a sovereign nation in order to be making manufacturing goods right here in our country without having to rely. Not that you can't have partnerships around the world, and sell each other and have commerce, but we have to have that manufacturing back here.
Oh, what an amazing wake up call that was. You're absolutely right. The whole COVID thing, once again, the left trying to undermine the nation wound up being a great wake up call for us and maybe a blessing in disguise because we found out we couldn't even make, not that I wanted to wear a mask, we didn't even have enough materials to make masks. We had to go overseas for that.
Yeah.
What was it? Things like Pedialyte, the baby formula, ran out of that. Didn't have enough
The
of that.
ventilators.
Yeah, ventilators. I mean, the most basic things. Most of the drug manufacturing research, all that's like done overseas. We come up with the technology here. We find this stuff here, but then it's made someplace else and then shipped back here. Well, can you imagine? And this is easy to imagine right now, given the Chinese Communist Party. If your worst enemy was responsible for making your war material, what kind of trouble would you be in should you wind up in a war? And it doesn't even have to be a kinetic war. It can be an asymmetrical war like the one we're in right now, but they just say, hey, okay, we're not giving you any masks. Oh, we got your drugs over here. Well, we're just not going to supply them. Or shipbuilding. I think I saw somewhere that something like 80 or 90% of all shipbuilding is now done out of China. We don't even have the capacity to make our own ships. I mean, can you imagine a country that during World War II produced Portland? It's by itself produced a Liberty ship every day, and now we can't make ships. We can't do that. And thank goodness that Trump has recognized this, or at least the Trump administration has recognized this, and bring our manufacturing back home. It's a defense. Is not only is it necessary to build a healthy middle class, but it's also necessary for our national survival.
Absolutely. So that I'm going to segue just a little into, do you read the Hillsdale College imprimis?
Yes, I get the imprimis. Yes.
So I was just reading this today,
Yep.
right here. I just got this as the latest edition, and that is exactly what it was talking about. This new thinking needed on national defense, because here we are selling arms to other countries, giving them, helping Ukraine. Biden was giving all of our arms away, but we don't have the capability to remake them. And that is dangerous as a nation. And where we can remake them, the time, it's not like it's not going to be ready in a week. It's going to be a while.
Right.
And it talks about the shipbuilding in there actually. And it's and I'll take this all right back to NAFTA, the North America Free Trade Agreement that Clinton signed. Started shipping our jobs away. And my husband and I today were having a little discussion about it and saying, and the unions just let it happen.
Right.
These were
Well,
union jobs lost, but the unions just let it happen.
well, I suspect that the people at the top of the food chain in the unions weren't hurt by any of this. You can bet your bottom dollar on that.
No.
Yeah, it's and going back to that, you maybe think of this. You have and I was a free trade guy. I'm still a free trade guy. I mean, we were taught in business school back in the day that free trade was the best thing since sliced bread. But the reality is, it's still got to be fair trade. And I love that terminology because the rest of the world has been radically unfair to the United States. And I think the United States, the good side of me wants to think we were doing it to help the rest of the world. The bad side of me is there were certain people that were doing it to the destruction of the United States. So somewhere probably in between those two, poles, this all happened. But you think about that. So just to run through that, I think we have a trade imbalance of something like 500 or 600 billion to China, like 400 billion to Mexico, like 60 billion to like Canada, and the same numbers apply to all the European countries. It's like out of control, especially when you think about Mexico, because on top of the fact that we have this trade deficit, then people live here on our welfare that have immigrated here illegally, and then they remit the money back to Mexico. So you lay around another probably 50 or 60 billion for that. It's like insane. We cannot support the entire world. And it's so glad to finally have an administration that America first. This is what it means. We're doing this. In the meantime, uh, kids in small towns can't get jobs. Meth is out of control. In the cities, the same thing is true. We need to put a stop to that. And this is how we do it. Bring those jobs back home.
100%. 100%. I really appreciated Trump 1.0, but Trump 2.0 is slaying it. He's slaying it, and the whole administration. I commend the people that did not need a job, but I've gotten involved with Trump's administration in order to make real change and affect the change that we need in our country for our country to survive. And look at what Trump is doing yesterday, today, over in Saudi Arabia. The welcoming that he got today in Qatar. Oh my gosh, it is something else. And he wants peace. This is all about peace. It's about commerce too,
Mhm.
but it is peace. And it's beautiful seeing him. We're watching the art of the deal, and he is the champion of the deal makers,
Oh,
and going and meeting with the new president of Syria.
mhm,
And he says, we will give him a chance. They have an opportunity. What are you going to do with Syria?
mhm,
And in his speech last night, he said, when he mentioned that we're going to stop the sanctions against Syria, we're going to
mhm.
lift the sanctions. He says, "Oh, the things I do for the crown prince." You know,
Well,
but I'll tell you, the crown prince asked him, "Would you please meet?"
mhm,
So there's you have to have some trust but verify, right? And but I think this is a good move. Why not try it? If they're
well,
willing to come to the table and have peace in the Middle East, but it's not just a blanket. He also asked, well, you need to, come to the Abraham Accords
mhm.
and recognize Israel and all of that. I
Well,
love what we're seeing.
I think the other thing too that I think is really resonating for these other nations is we're not going over there with the leftist belief that our society is better than yours. You should do it our way. We're gonna undo what you do culturally here, then you should do it our way. That superiority thing that the left has been imposing on the rest of the world for the last 50 years, that they appreciated someone coming over. I'm not going to have his words exactly right, but basically, we respect your culture, we respect what you do, we respect where you've gone. We're not trying to change any of that. We're here to like do business, right? We're here to do business with you, number one. And number two, ensure that we have peace in the process of doing that. And I think these heads of state really respect that. Number one, and number two, they respect dealing with someone who knows what they're doing. Another true equal head of state, and not the individual who went over there before. You remember when Biden went, the princes didn't even show up. They sent like the third in command or something to go meet him at the
Yes.
airport. No purple carpet, no nothing, right? Because there was no reason to deal with him. You might as well just send over Joe Citizen. This time they're dealing with someone who can truly make deals in everyone's best interest. And I think, quite frankly, they were thrilled, to have him come over because they're going to benefit from that just as much as we are.
Yes, and what it is, it's also mutual respect. When Biden and that regime was in office, there we did not have the respect, and Trump spoke about the fact that we're not coming here to impose our way on in the Middle East, but we're coming here seeing what you all have accomplished. That
Mhm.
was so good. You're just spot on there. I just posted an article from PJ Media that was the headline is Trump shocks the world again, and it's about him, his trip there, and it also gives some history on the new Syrian president, and it sounds like might very well Syria has is turning the page. You know, Nations. This is the beauty of life. You can start over again. And
Mhm.
there's been a big regime change in Syria. And so time will tell how that's going to be. But Trump was asked, please, let's do this. And he said, okay, let's do. This is how you have, this is a statesman at work.
Yeah, hey, I think it was Churchill that said, "Talking's better. It might be talk, but talking's better than fighting." So that's what we want. So that's a good thing, also. So And I just posted this. I think this is another really interesting thing. We just came across this. I just came across this earlier this morning. There's been a $1.5 trillion discovery of a lithium deposit in Southern Oregon. I don't know how many of you all had heard about this, but that is number one. It's amazing that it's there. Number two, it's amazing that the media doesn't seem to be covering this. Um, that is absolutely. I'm sure there's defense implications from that. There's obviously implications about these electric vehicles, all of those things, right there in our backyard. And I haven't had a chance to really digest this or think about it. You can bet your bottom dollar that every environmentalist nut job in the world is going to come out against it. So there'll be that dogfight. But stand by for more insight on that one.
That is interesting. That's going to be that's going to be something else to see what happens with that. You know, there's in Nevada, because it is in Southern Oregon near Nevada. Nevada has a lot of mining, and we'll see. You know, which side gets to mine more, right?
Right,
Oregon
right.
or
No,
Nevada?
exactly.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, given the folks that run Oregon, who knows what will happen? But it
Oh,
should be an
yeah.
opportunity for Oregon residents to do well. But we will see. We will see what happens with that.
Well, and isn't there another one in eastern Colorado? Because Colorado, I don't know, I think it was lithium
Hmm.
that in eastern Colorado, the government was actually saying, we're going to shut the water off to some 500,000 acres.
Hmm.
And the farmers were basically going to be screwed. But now through the Trump administration's pressure, they've said, no, we're not going to do that. They've talked about that for the last 2 years. And I
Hmm.
believe it is also over mining.
Hmm.
And, we have to have access to these rare earth minerals. And actually, part of talking with the crown prince over there was also he mentioned some minerals,
Hmm.
and I believe Trump and uh, Zelensky signed an agreement over minerals as well. But you
Yes,
still
they
have
did.
to get them from there to here, and we'll see all what happens. Um,
But
yeah,
once
it's
again,
going to be interesting.
it's nice because once more it shows the United States doesn't have to be dependent on anyone for anything. And I just thought one of the great things about that was, hey, we could just get it here ourselves if we need to. And we don't have
Yes,
to employ slave labor from the Congo or something in order to do it, which is a point that never seems to get made, you know,
that's a fact.
by
That's
our
a fact.
wonderful national press, right?
Right, right. The propaganda machine. That's
The
what
propaganda.
I'm calling them, the propaganda machine, because
Yes.
so much so for legacy media or things like that. That's a
Uh,
name. No, it's the
oh my
propaganda
goodness. Yeah,
machine.
and this is a great segue into one point I wanted to make last week, and I'll pull the link in just a minute. But when Trump last week had the reporters and the cabinet there, and he talked, it was like nonstop. He took over 100 questions from reporters. I don't think Biden took that many questions in 4 years. He did this in one shot, and that's like in 100 days. He's taken all of these questions and nothing from the previous president. And the amazing thing of what came out of that was like the press didn't report hardly anything that was discussed. So that goes to show you the crazy media bias that we've seen in the past continues unabated. I don't know how they look in the mirror at themselves. I really don't.
I don't either, and I heard that the propaganda machine is getting really pissed off at the independent journalists that are at the White House briefing room and going, we might sue to change and kick them out of here. They're not credentialed journalists. Yeah, well, they're the ones that are talking about what the president is talking about. They're spreading, um, I'll say, the truth instead of the
Mhm.
propaganda. trying to
Yeah.
reach people and educate them what's
I
going
tell you,
on.
I'd almost have no problem with them kicking ABC, NBC, and all the rest of them out
Oh, yeah.
entirely. Now, I shouldn't say that totally because you need them in the room because that sets a precedent. Although Democrats don't care about precedent. Why am I even bringing that up? But in the
No.
interest of fairness, let them go ahead. The Democrat approval rating is down somewhere around 20%, which is about as low as you can possibly get. That is a stunning number. And I saw something somewhere too. It was Trump's approval number is something like, I think it's like 49%, which is like, it's never been that high in the entire 20, 25 years that Rasmussen's been reporting this. No president's been that high before. So it's like at 49%, and it keeps going north. You got to think to yourself, for the reasons we talked about before, it's impossible for it to get more than 70% because 25 or 30% of the population is like nuts. So you get close to 50%, you are knocking it out of the park. And that's tremendous in considering the level of reporting you're getting from the national press.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So something that the let's go to immigration a little bit here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Trump has brought in the uh, some refugees from South Africa, and
Oof.
yet the Democrats are screaming, "No, no, we don't want them." And essentially, they're saying we don't want them because they're white. These are not legitimate refugees, and yet they are. The
Yeah.
white South Africans are being slaughtered in and there, and I'm really happy that our administration, these people are true refugees. It is not the 20. I read yesterday that the out of the White House they said 22 million crossed our border. 22 million.
And now they're
Those
crying because you
people are not refugees
and they're
because
only
they're, you know, they're not. When you are crossing several countries in order to get to our country, you are not truly seeking asylum. And these, so I saw a video that they had just welcomed them, and these are families. This is not just military age men either. They're complete family units with all their children, and I'm glad that they're here. Welcome them with. These are productive human beings. They're farmers. They were business owners, and they have lost it all.
what is the total number, by the way? We're talking like around 100 or something. It's in the hundreds. It's not even like, it's not millions.
No, I think the very first group that they've brought in, and I say first group, was less than 60 people.
Okay, that's right. Right.
I
So here's
believe it was less than 60 people. And what's happening over there is an absolute genocide. And so I'm very glad that they'll be bringing some others. And these are people that applied, for asylum. They've, went through, they actually, it's 49. This article I'm looking here, it says,
okay.
they accepted 49 white South Africans to the country. And, the deal is, but they left the propaganda is saying, but wait a minute, this is after this administration revoked refugee status from other countries like
Mhm.
migrants from Sudan, Afghanistan, and Ukraine. And he said, no, those people were not in refugees, and they didn't apply. These are people that applied to come here.
And that's the thing with our press to show you how outrageous their bias is.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a situation where what 50 or 60 people have applied for asylum the right way, are actually coming to the country the right way, um, as opposed to storming across the borders and breaking the law. So they want to be against these people coming. We know what the reason is basically because they're white. But for the background for the audience, I don't know, we probably should go into a little detail on that because there has not been much reporting on that. South Africa is an absolute disaster right now. Long gone are the days of Nelson Mandela and all of that. That's way in the rearview mirror. What's happened to that country is they've gone completely to one party rule. I can't. Is it the ANC? I think is the name of the party that's taken over there, and it's a one party state, has been so, which basically means it's being run by a group of family members and relatives. The place can't even keep the lights on. And the lights go off like 40% of the time. They're operating in the darkness. You never know when the lights are going to go off. I mean, that's how badly run the place is. If most people have houses that have like a, what do you call those security rooms in your house where you can go
A
underground?
safe house.
They literally have safe houses because the crime is that bad there. And what's happening, and every communist government does this, once they run the economy into the ground, they got to have a scapegoat so they could direct the attention away from themselves. And what this government's doing is trying to blame it on the white Boers because they are the ones who own the land, who had the farms, and are basically feeding the country. So if we can put the blame on them for a while, then it takes the eyes off of us. And that's precisely what they're doing. And they're literally slaughtering these people, by the way, which is what Sonny alluded to earlier. I mean, you
They
can go
are.
to certain parts of town and there's crosses everywhere for the families that they have literally killed. And they have political rallies now where they're chanting "Kill the Boers, kill the Boers, kill the Boers." It's right out there in public now, and our press isn't touching any of that.
No.
So, like Sonny said, we're watching the middle of a genocide there. And just by the way, historically, this is what the dictators do. This is what Idi Amin, if you remember him from back in the 70s, when
Mhm.
Uganda, when he drove that place into the toilet, the first thing he did was he went after the Indians. I'm talking subcontinent Indians, who were the business owners and who were successful and doing well. He blamed it on them, and they started going after them, and he ran them out of the country. And once they were out of the country, the very citizens who were responsible for making things go, things went even further in the toilet. Um, and which is exactly what Stalin did to the Ukrainians, the kulaks, back in the 30s. Once they
Mhm.
destroyed all the kulaks, the working class, the farming class, the place went straight into famine and starvation, which is exactly what China did, by the way, in the early 60s. You can see their addition. 30 million people starved to death because Chairman Mao did the same thing in order to take the eyes away from how they were destroying the country. So it's the same pattern every time with these communists. It really is.
It is. And so they're attacking the farmers. And there are miles and miles of on a road. I've seen a couple of videos of a road that is miles and miles of white crosses on both sides of the road, and every cross depicts a person that has died from this, a white person that has died. And I don't care your color, the genocide, or your race, or anything, the genocide shouldn't be happening. Much like the Christians that are being slaughtered, that we also do not hear about.
Mhm. I tell
There's
you,
a
yeah.
and so we actually I'm not afraid to for us to take in refugees that are being persecuted like this and slaughtered like this, especially after, as Marjorie said, they've been vetted. These are people that apply for asylum and they've all been vetted, yes, and they have some criteria that must be met. And it's a sad deal. So I'm glad. But the thing is here you have the Democrats crying, no, no, you can't do that.
You know, let them
We
just
want
do
the
that.
drug ones, we want the Tren de Aragua and the MS-13 guys.
Yeah, they're putting up a fight for them.
They
And the thing
are.
is, people who come here from asylum from those kinds of circumstances, they come here and they really appreciate it and they wind up being the most productive
Yes.
citizens we've ever had. You look at the Jews who fled here after World War II. I mean, it's legendary the
Yeah.
successes that they created once they got here. You look at the Cubans who fled Cuba. It's legendary what they've done to Florida. I mean, in a positive way since they've been here. I mean, every group that gets run out of their own country that comes here, they appreciate it way more than we do, and they absolutely flourish. And that's so. Again, give us your best and brightest. Go right
Yes.
ahead. I hate to see what
Yes.
you're doing in your own country to them, but that's what's going to happen.
So Pam has posted that in the last 10 years, over 4,000 have been killed in South Africa.
Yeah.
And the thing about, I have a few South African friends, people that have left years ago, And in fact, one couple, they took their family, they bought a sailboat and left the country, and they are actually, the family is in diamond mining.
Mhm.
But what I learned from them is, you think, well, you can leave, you can't take your money with you, which is why they bought this beautiful boat and took as much as they could, because the country will not allow you to take your money out of the bank and take it
Well,
with you.
you get your life, and you get to keep your expertise and your energy. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but this is the way you have to look at it. And
Right.
those people come here, and in a generation or two, they're right back where they were. That's what happens. And the
It
other
is.
country, and the country they leave goes right to hell in a handbasket.
And another friend of mine, he's a PhD in agriculture. And he's currently, after being here in the States for a number of years and actually working locally, great guy. And he was able to get his mother out of South Africa as well. And, I do not blame them. Those are people that have come here into this country illegally, or I'm sorry, legally, lawfully, through the right processes. And yeah, it's, come
Well,
on in. We welcome you, but it's hilarious watching the
yeah.
Democrats. Trump keeps doing things that makes the
Mhm.
Democrats scream and
Oh,
wakes up more Democrats to help the walkaway movement.
yeah. And the thing is, it's all over the place. This is one of the things I love about what he's doing. He's hitting them from so many angles that don't have time to come up with a strategy. For example, we got to shift to this. How about the what he's doing with the pharmaceutical price
Oh,
cuts?
yeah.
This is like tremendous. And I'll send a link here on this one in just a moment. So, as way of background, and I used to be in that industry, was they have what's called best most favored nation pricing. So those nations get our, and it could be any products. In this case, we're talking about drugs. Most favored nations, they get the lowest price available. Well, just to give you an idea of some of the pricing that other countries have gotten, let's take Jardiance. So this is a drug for diabetes. In let's see, in the United States, it's $611 for 30 days supply. $611 for 30 days supply. In Switzerland, it's $70. In Japan, it's only $35. So the drug is manufactured and invented like here, but we're giving the Japanese a $35 deal, and our elderly people here are paying 611. I can't even calculate the percentage, how much higher that is. Now you run that across all the drugs that are available. And I remember when I was in this industry, people, yeah, I'd go to Canada, get the $60 a month drug for $5, right? Or $2. Or I'll just go to Mexico and get it for $1. And Americans were driving across the border and going through all kinds of changes just to get the drugs someplace out of the country because their own country was screwing them. Why did all these presidents between now and Trump let that happen? Who knows why? But the bottom line is Trump has put a stop to it. And the Democrats are losing their mind. And the hilarious thing about this is, so you used to be the party that defended the poor. You're not going to defend people who are getting reamed for their drug prices. They're more concerned about the stock prices of the pharmaceutical companies. What is up with that? Um, anyway, let them run out and defend that.
Yes, and they're screaming because they are bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical industry. And in the speech that I watched, RFK Jr., a portion of it, I watched him give a portion of this speech with Trump when Trump says, we are, not going to do business like this any longer. RFK Jr. said, you know what? Trump received $100,000 from the pharmaceutical company, but he's not bought and paid for by them, unlike those the all the politicians. Let me
Mhm.
tell you, the Chuck Schumer and the Nancy Pelosi and whatnot, they are absolutely bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical company, and a lot of politicians are. And I'm glad, because these other countries do not need favored nation status whatsoever.
No, or yeah,
Whatsoever.
and they could keep getting most favored nation status. It's just you have to give it to us too.
Right. We're going
Uh,
to price
yeah,
match.
you can keep giving Japan drugs $30. Just give us $30 drugs too. To help everybody.
Exactly.
So somehow I don't think they're going to be good with that, but but that's the deal. And then the related story, how about this? They're looking at potentially removing the COVID shot from the early childhood vaccination schedule. Now, my first thought was, I didn't know it was on the early childhood vaccination schedule. How in the world is the COVID shot on the vaccination schedule for children? It doesn't make any sense at all. There's zero data that supports that it would help. In fact, the data shows it does worse in like kids. I just, which goes to show you the power of the pharmaceutical lobby.
Yes.
That's all it could be.
100%. It is. It's just about the money. They don't care about humanity. They care about the money and their stock, their investors.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad to hear this coming off of childhood vaccines. What it needs to do is, and I hope it happens soon, that they pull the damn things off the market altogether.
Oh,
All forms, all shape and forms of them, because the truth is coming out. And, as to the mRNA technology in them and what it's doing. And I read a report the other day about what it's doing to women and birth rates and to the eggs that women have and the fallopian tubes and all of that. It's awful. And yet in children aren't even susceptible to catching COVID. They're going to get, even if they catch it, it's just a little cold and it goes on. It's totally bogus. But you see, the pharmaceutical and the medical industry has said, but what if you'll catch it? This will help you in case you catch it. We all have an immune system.
can,
It's
can you
okay.
can you imagine having a product that's promoted by the government and you can't be sued if it doesn't work or it makes people sick or it kills them?
Yes.
And in some cases, the government even forces people to buy your drug that hasn't been tested. We don't know if it's safe. We don't know if it works, and we don't know it's safe. Never before in history has this happened. And it's about time we wake up. I think people are waking up. I mean, the fact that the insurance data, for example, around what's happening with the health of working age Americans between the age of, I think it's 20 and 65, the rate of sickness is through the roof. It's where it's never been before. We're talking about from an actuarial standpoint, statistically, this should never happen. And none of this is being reported. If there's any industry that relies on data in order to determine whether they make a buck, it's the insurance industry. And they're seeing this, and it's not being reported anywhere. You have to really be kind of a sleuth or be on the non-major media to know this stuff. Um, but I think people are gradually waking up, and thank goodness for RFK.
Absolutely. And the teams that he's putting together, and that Trump is putting together. It is because we're going to get some data. It's going to be shocking to people, I think, what we get, because they're going to go back and look through the VAERS as well. And I think it's going to be brutal, quite frankly. But we have to do this, and then people need to be prosecuted for what's happened. I mean, they've already released the fact that as our government owns the patents,
Mhm.
along with the NIH. Our government and the NIH owns the patents. So they're uh, releasing information, but of course the propaganda machine does not want any of their audience to know about this. They want to keep them blindfolded sheep, you know, keep their
Yes.
blinders on. No, no, no. We can't let them know that there's some truth out there.
Well, I tell you, if there's one lesson learned out of all of this stuff over the last 4 years, maybe 8 years, is that we as a society have become too trusting of government. I mean, even if we had great government or good government, you should always have the jaundiced eye about anything, and not just trust what you're told. Um, it's just it's just not a good way to go. The founders didn't trust big government. That's why they designed the Constitution the way that they did, to keep it as small as possible, because they knew that it was government by definition attracts the worst among us. and is the only segment of society that can put an army and make that army come kick your door down. A lot of people forget this, but there's actually one of the Bills of Rights. It never comes up because it hasn't happened on our soil. But that Bill of Rights, basically, I can't remember which one it is, but it basically says that the army can't come to your house, kick your door down, and live in your house and eat your food and like take over your farm. Now that sounds archaic now, but it wasn't archaic then, and truly, that could happen now. And the reason that's there is because that's what governments do.
Yeah.
That's what they do when they get out of control. And so trusting them is a dangerous thing. You have to have them. They're necessary evil. I get that. But one should always have the jaundice die. And they've just
Yes.
proven that over the last 4 years.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They have 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's happened. I'm just looking at some of the commentary here, like around the COVID. So, Marlene, I love the comment, parents, we don't have to allow them to get COVID vaccine. Here's what happens. You take your kid to the doctor anymore, and they will try to get your kid to be in a room without you in the room. And then you'll ask the kid a bunch of questions behind your back. Now, there are parents who are aware of these sorts of things, or who are confident, who aren't intimidated by the medical establishment. But that's not the majority of the population. Majority of the population is going to roll over, and let them go back there and basically ask these kids a bunch of questions that are designed to get them to say things a certain way. And they want them to have they want your 12 or 13-year-old to get to take pills and to have abortifacients, and they're going to sell them on a bunch of stuff behind your back, and that happens all day long. Um,
It does. It does. I was recently at a doctor's office and with somebody, and that person was asked, "Oh, hey, would you like to have your tetanus, your Tdap
mhm,
shot?" And that person said, "No, no, thank
mhm,
you." You know,
mhm,
and it's and I'm not an anti-vax person, but
mhm,
let me tell you, until there, I'm very, very, very vocal. I've talked about it. Anybody who's watched Captive Audience,
mhm,
think about it. And
mhm,
a tetanus shot is something that, heck, I've had lots of those,
mhm,
after I've gotten punctured with something,
mhm.
right? And go, oh, yeah,
Right.
when was my last one? Oh, it's been 10 years ago. Yeah, I better get one. But
Yeah, I
but it's
think you have
scary
to.
today thinking what might be in it.
And see, I was like this well before this stuff. I remember back, gosh, in my military days, and they had the flu virus, the flu shot rather. I never took
Hmm.
the flu shot because I didn't think you should put anything in your body unless you absolutely had to. And
Right.
evidence to me was a 25-year-old recovers in great shape, recovers pretty quickly from the flu. So I never worried about that stuff. And I still, to this day, I don't believe you should put anything in there unless there's a really justifiable, even if it is, it's safe and efficacious and all that. Your body is designed to heal itself, and you should not put things in it unless you absolutely have to. And that's not the way things are being presented to people anymore because
No.
everybody's making money on these drugs and vaccines and all these other things. And so it pays for you to do your own research anymore. And unfortunately, most people don't do that because they trust them to either A, they trust them too much, or B, they don't have the, I don't, I'm trying not to be insulting, but they don't have the energy, time, intellect, whatever it is, to go out and do that research. But these days, it's at the push of a button. You can learn so much because of this information technology we have now. Um, so you can educate yourself.
Yeah, yeah. It pays to ask questions, be an independent thinker, and look
Hmm.
around. I mean, to educate yourself and look around. But that's this is where alternative media has really helped a lot, and because the propaganda machine is not doesn't want to talk about that. They still want you under the government thumb. Hey, I have a good news story.
Lay it
A
on us.
Southern California school district ordered, but it was a federal court, was ordered to inform parents before adding gender topics to the buddy program. And so this was issued Monday. A federal court issued the order on Monday, barring a California school district from including gender identity topics in its elementary school buddy program unless parents are provided with advance notice and an opportunity to opt out.
That is so huge. So glad to hear that. And remember, we're talking California here, maybe the most communist state of all. So to have that happen there is pretty amazing.
Yes, that was in Encinitas. And I'll tell you, I've got friends that live in Encinitas. So kudos to them taking them to court. It should be an opt in program,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But it's a step
but
in the right direction.
it is. It's at least a win, and I'm really glad about that. We have to have we're winning a lot as we started out. We're winning bigly, right?
Yeah.
I have another one. Can I go
Mhm.
ahead?
You can. Uh-huh.
Okay, so on in PJ Media, Tulsi Gabbard ends a secret Biden regime policy that justified its targeting of patriots. And I'm going to post a link to this article because in this article is also a link to the document. And the document is so apparently under Biden, he has, they were weaponizing the government, and as those of us that look at alternative media and have our eyes a little more wide open than others. And so, what she did, she said, to ensure transparency and accountability, I declassified and released the document so Americans could see the truth about the Biden administration's weaponization and politicization of our government against Americans. This abuse of power that violates our God given freedoms and civil liberties must end. End quote. This is a good deal. The documents are there. You can download it, you can read it for yourself. It is about being little independent journalists and looking at what's out there, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. No, that is. It's what they did with that whole J6 thing is so beyond the pale. Just when you think they couldn't get any lower, they got lower. And they're arresting people for, grandmothers for standing outside abortion clinics. I mean, just crazy stuff, right? Um, and it's just great to see this all get turned around. I mean, getting sentences that were like, just out of control, kicking people's doors down with raids on families because they walked in front of an abortion clinic. It's just in this in the United States. Um,
Yeah.
Never thought I'd live to see this happen, but it did. Um, and we know what we're up against.
Well, that's right. And remember, Biden wanted to establish the Disinformation Governance Board. That's what this is
I
tied
forgot.
with,
I forgot
which
all
would
about
have policed speech that dissented from the leftist establishment perspective. I'm reading from this PJ Media article.
that. Mhm.
And the regime also sicked the FBI on angry parents protesting at school board meetings, and people that worked with Twitter and other social media trying to silence them. They sent spies into Catholic churches to keep tabs on pro-lifers. This is wrong, and it goes against our Constitution. We have liberties and rights, God-given liberties and rights in this country.
Mhm.
And so kudos to her. A lot
Yeah.
of people are going, well, things aren't happening fast enough. Well, hello. It's just barely 100 days, and it takes a little bit while
Plus,
to
this
make
is a
things
hole
happen.
they've been digging this hole for at least 40 years. We have to remember that. We have sat
Yes.
on our heels, conservatives, and let them do this to us for a minimum of 40 years, probably more like 50. So to make this kind of headway in literally 100 days, I guess you could count that first 4 years of Trump. But really, then I don't think he or us knew how bad it was.
No.
That 4 year experience gave us a look into how bad it was. And then the next 4 years, once they stole the election, we got a deep look into how bad it was. So this is really the first time we really recognize that we, the American people, have been at war. The other side's known it for 40 years. Um, we just finally woke up. Um, so we're 100
No,
days into the fight.
the American people have been snookered, totally snookered into thinking that this couldn't happen here. And it is a difficult pill to swallow, knowing that our country is pretty damn corrupt, like a banana republic,
Yeah, pretty,
you know.
pretty
But
bad. I mean, you
but
look at
once you realize that, then the job is to turn it around. And like
right.
the 4 years that when the election got stolen, that was the retaliatory years because of all the lawfare that happened. They tried to put the pedal to the metal
Mhm.
and eliminate Trump at every turn, that they finally had to resort to two assassination attempts. And it's but we've got people in place.
Mhm.
The truth is coming out, and we have to
Mhm.
help
Mhm.
keep talking about it. Keep talking
I mean,
about the truth.
remember when the word impeachment meant something? I remember the first
Yes,
time I heard of it was when Nixon was president. And
yes,
then it didn't come up again for what, 30 years or something? Now it's like every day somebody's talking impeachment. And before Nixon, it was what, the Johnson administration. I'm talking about the first Johnson. So right after Lincoln. So in the 1860s, that's the last time. Now every week they're talking impeachment. It's lost all credibility, all the constant lawfare,
yeah,
and it coming down right to the J6 scam, right down to two assassination attempts that we know of.
yeah,
That's how emboldened these people became. That's how close we came. And you have to figure that there was something beyond our power, dare I say, outside of supernatural, that we're even in the position that we're in now. It's easy to forget that, but a couple of inches here or there, and who knows where we are. So we're blessed, but that doesn't mean we're off the hook. We got to keep fighting.
we have to do the work, and we are blessed. I'll tell you, we live in the best country in the world. We truly, truly do. And we can still keep fighting. One, because we have our Constitution intact.
Hmm.
The lawfare is trying to undo that. But two, we also have our guns,
Hmm.
and they're working very fervently to try to get rid of that. Now, I have one more good news story,
Hmm.
and this is the Supreme Court is there tomorrow. They're going to be hearing the case. On Thursday, the Supreme Court is set to hear the arguments in a consolidated case, Trump v. Casa, which challenges lower court rulings that block Trump's executive orders ending birthright citizenship for children born in the U.S. and to illegal immigrants. So they're hearing that case tomorrow. We won't have a decision tomorrow, but just know it's going through the system.
Hmm.
And the headline of that is, it's set to end the nationwide judicial injunctions, because these lower courts, they cannot do that. They can issue an injunction that affects the district that they represent, but not the nation. And and if the Supreme Court doesn't do it, then Congress better, because Congress can dissolve those lower courts. They're not in the Constitution.
And ultimately, and I have to go look at this again because it's been a while, but Lincoln basically ignored them. It came down
Yes,
to that, you know,
yes, he
um,
did.
and it may come down to that. I hope not, but it may come down to that. I admire the Trump administration's restraint for not going straight to that. That would be my go-to. Is like, clearly that's wrong and unconstitutional. So you go figure that out while I go. I got a country to run, and
Right.
it may come down to that. But yes, the court.
Trump has said, I will follow the law. He has always said, I will follow the law. I'll
Mhm.
follow the courts and I'll follow the law.
Mhm.
Because the left has said, oh no, remember they said he'll be a dictator.
Mhm.
So he is showing, I'm not the dictator. that
Mhm.
the left says that they think that he would be. So it is restraint, and it's very frustrating for the American people that
Mhm.
voted. The immigration was the number one issue
Mhm.
um, that got Trump elected. I think every by across all the demographics was immigration, and to have that type of thing shut down
Mhm.
in so many forms, um, it's very frustrating. But Trump, they're still going after the ones that all they have plenty to pick up,
Yeah.
and states are deputizing, not deputizing, but they're passing laws or signing executive orders. The governors are that all police, everybody, all their police can all now become like ICE. And so they're picking them all up. They're picking them up left and right in Florida. They're
Mhm.
doing that, I believe, in Texas. Other
Mhm.
states are doing it as well. And they're going, yeah, we're going to help, because if they have a detainer, they already have a detainer. A judge has issued a detainer. That
Yeah.
is the due, that's, I'm not going to say due process. I started to say that. I'm not going to say that because they never had due process coming into this country.
Right. Yeah.
And the
They're
due process is a farce. It's a farce that the left is using, because when you come in illegal, we have the right to kick you right out of here.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing we're in this conundrum, but clearly we're here because the left wants us here, because they want to
Yes.
gut the country. I mean, that's how you destroy a country, is you destroy its civilization by watering down that which makes it what it is. People have no allegiance to it, have no idea what it's about, and that's how you destroy it, and that's the objective.
It is. It is, but we're winning bigly.
Yeah.
We're winning in many fronts, and here you have Trump making the left scream, the Democrats scream over so many things. Cutter says we're gonna loan you an airplane. We're actually gonna give it to the Department of Defense, so you can use it and fly in a. That we want the President of the United States to fly in a safe plane
Mhm.
instead of a 40-year-old plane. And here their left is screaming. The Democrats, their heads are exploding. Oh no, you
Yeah.
can't do that. You can't accept a gift.
It's completely obvious. It's just the weakest. I can't believe they think the population. Yeah, their base may be that stupid, but no one else is believing that he's going to take home this plane personally. I mean, it's obvious that's not what's going on here, but they're actually trying to sell that. They're giving him personally a plane. Like
Yeah,
the man needs a plane anyway. you know,
right, right.
it's just it's the insanity of the radical left, the inability to deal with the issues. And you'll notice everything they do, they always avoid the issues. Just like you mentioned earlier, what were the key issues that got him elected? Well, there was the border, there was inflation. Those two things were the things. Then there was out of control wars and foreign interventions. Um,
Yeah,
and they didn't address any of those. Then there's
no.
the social side of things, kids getting chopped up in school and men competing in women's sports. And they're on the wrong side of every one of those things. And they never want to speak to any of those things. If that party's ever going to get fixed, it's going to be by getting on the side of what the American people want. And they're just not on the side of any of that. And they never speak to it. And until they do, they're going to stay in the back seat, no matter how much they cheat and lie and steal. Um,
I'm
and
happy
that's
with them
really,
being in the back seat, because the more that they do, the more people wake up. Remember when they had like a 30% approval rating? Well, now it's around 20.
uh,
And it probably will never get better than that or worse than that.
mhm,
But they're not fighting for Americans. They're not fighting for their constituents that they're elected to represent. Frankly, they're fighting for the
yeah,
illegals that have come in illegally. It's just wild.
yeah. At the top of the food chain, it's 100% about power, so they can
Yeah.
please the Davos crowd. And at the bottom of the food chain is just pure emotion and low IQ. You see these
Yeah.
people, chanting and singing in front of like INS, deportation stations. It's like, what are you, grown people singing, or grown people, getting in front of a camera like politicians and cursing. They have to go potty mouth. I mean, what
Yes.
could be less mature than a politician cursing to show their anger? I'm like stunned that that's happening. I'd expect that kind of behavior from a teenage boy on a street corner, but from a grown person in their 40s or 50s who's won a political office cursing,
Yeah.
it's pretty it's pretty amazing. That's where we are.
A lot of the show that they're doing is just that. They're trying to rally the Democrat base. Oh, we're fighting for rights. You see, we're fighting for civil rights. No, they're not. No,
No.
they're not.
Yeah.
And to have those three Democrat legislators, I think, I hope they're all arrested, and tried. I know we've got a judge now that is, but that has been arrested and indicted by the grand jury for harboring a fugitive and interfering with an ICE order, for crying out loud. But
Yeah.
these that went and protested at that ICE detention facility, that they're just it's just a show,
Yeah.
and it's a
Yeah.
bad show. It's a bad show because there's so many people are going, oh no, this is what
Yeah.
you guys are doing. They're missing the mark, but let them continue missing the mark.
So
I'm
keep
happy
doing
with
that. Yeah. The people actually participating in it, I'm going to guess, but I've not looked. They're all in really safe districts where they can get
it.
away with
Yes,
that stuff.
I bet.
So you're talking about a handful of people can rally whatever that base is. If your base is 20%, you're not going to win anything national. I mean, you might stay in office in that zip code, and even that's in doubt. I suspect that the lunatic in Brooklyn, what's her name, Ocasio Cortez,
Cortez, yeah.
yeah, I suspect that
AOC.
she might wind up getting a run for her money because a lot of people in that district are kind of fed up with her not being there doing anything for their district. Have things improved in that district? We know they haven't. They've just gotten worse. So while she's gallivanting around the country trying to buff up her aspirations for a presidential run, which might, believe it or not, very well be the case, um, people back home are like suffering, um, and maybe they'll start to wake up.
Maybe we'll see. But right now, hey, we covered a lot of good stuff tonight, Don.
We
Thank you
did that.
so much.
I thank you as well. I can't believe it's an hour already, but it went by fast again. Thank you, audience, for being such a great audience, and we loved the responsiveness you all give us here on the chat. We wish we could do more than chat and have it live for everyone, but of course that would be practical. But this has been fun. That was fantastic. Covered a lot of ground, and hey, keep fighting.
Yep. Good night, everybody. Like and share, spread our message around. Thank you. Thanks
Good
for
night,
joining
everybody.
us.
Good night.
Night.